Page 7. Johnny, my dear, Mrs. Woodlawn had complained to her husband, those frightful savages will eat us out of house and home. Patience, Harriet, said her husband. We have enough to spare, but Johnny, the way they look at the children's hair frightens me. They might want a red scalp to hang on to their belts. Caddie remembered very vividly the day 3 years before when she had gone unsuspecting into the store in the village. As she went in the door, a big Indian had seized her and held up in the air while he took a leisurely look at her hair. She had been so frightened that she had not even cried out, but hung there, wriggling in the Indian's firm grasp, and gazing desperately about the store for help. The storekeeper had laughed at her, saying in a reassuring voice, "You needn't be afraid, Caddie. He's a good Indian. It's Indian John." Interesting. That was the stranger beginning of a friendship, for a kind of friendship it was that had grown between Caddie and Indian John. The boys liked Indian John too, but it was at Caddie and her gold curls that the big Indian looked when it came to the farm. And it was for Caddie that he left bits of oddly carved wood, and once a doll. Such a funny doll with a tiny head made of pebble, covered with calico, black horsehair, braids, calico arms and legs, and a buckskin dress. John's dog knew his master's friends. Caddie had been kind to him, and he accepted her as a friend. He rubbed his head against her now, as she patted his rough hair. Indian John left his work on the canoe and came forward. "You like him, dog?" he said, grinning. He was flattered when anyone patted his dog. "Yes," said Caddie, "he's a good dog." "Will you let us see how you put the canoe together?" asked Tom eagerly. "You come look," said the Indian. They followed him to the half-finished canoe, grunting and grinning. The Indians took up their work. They fastened the pliable sheets of birch bark into place on the light framework, first sewing them together with buckskin thongs, then cementing them with the hot picks. The children were fascinated. Their canoe on the lake was an Indian canoe, but it had been hollowed out of a single log. They had seen the birch bark canoes on the river, but had never been so close to the making of one. They were so intent on every detail that time slipped by unheeded. Even the squaws, who came up behind them to examine their hair, did not take their attention from the building of the canoe. Caddie shook her head impatiently, flicking her curls out with her curious fingers, and went on watching. But after a while Warren said, "Golly, I'm hungry." Perhaps it was the odor of jerked venison simmering over the fire, which had begun to mingle with the odors of birch and pitch, that made Warren remember he was hungry. "You're always hungry," said Tom, the lofty one, in a tone of disgust. "Well, I am too," said Caddie positively, and that settled it. The sun was beginning to swing low in the sky, and once they had made up their minds, they were off at once. As quickly as they had come, they returned along the river bank to their crossing place. The Indians stared after them. They did not understand these curious red and white children of the white man, nor how they went and came. Soon 3 bundles, 3 dirty faces, and 3 fiery heads, shining in the red autumn sun, crossed the river bank with a little trail of ripples behind them. Safe on the other bank, the 3 hastily pulled on their clothes and started to take a short cut through the woods, Nero trotting at their heels. Hetty probably told Mother, and Mother may be as mad at us for going across the river without asking her, said Tom, beginning to turn his thoughts toward home. She never said we couldn't, protested Warren. Well, maybe she hadn't thought of such a good way of getting across, said Tom doubtfully. Look, said Caddie. She had stopped beside some hazel brush, and was gazing as it was, clasped hands. Nuts, they're ready to pick. They're green, said Warren. No, they're just right to pick now, if we spread them on the woodshed fruit to dry, said Tom judiciously, but we haven't much time. He began to fill his pockets. The others followed his example, only Caddie, who had no pockets, caught the edges of her skirt and made a bag of that. The boy's pockets were soon filled. "Come on," said Tom, "we've got enough." But Caddie's skirt was not half filled, and she didn't want to go. Warren was thinking of supper, and Tom was remembering that he was the eldest of the three, and that the longer they were gone, the more time his mother would have in which to get angry. Oh, that's it for now. That ends on page 12.